Jessica, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So like I was saying, this is our third time trying to start this intro, right? Start this podcast. But um I'm excited to chat with you, excited to kind of like dive into a little bit more of all that you do. But I want to start off with what what got you into real estate investing? How did you get your start in that?
So I was an assistant for a real estate firm, and I had no intention of being in real estate, but there was kind of a need at the company, and I filled in some shoes, and it just kind of stuck. My boss did have a mastermind for like real estate investors, and it definitely sparked my interest, and it was really cool to watch people sort of be able to grow their own businesses, and it just became something that was very interesting to me. So
What led you to take that role at the company, like the assistant role? Was it just like just looking for an assistant job, like any company would work?
well, I had been an assistant before
Okay.
slash nanny,
Hmm.
and then I ended up just kind of wanting to chase my dreams, which was to be a veterinarian. So I went and got a job at Royal Pets, which I
Oh,
loved,
that's
but
funny.
I couldn't seem to climb the ladder there. So, and it also was a little bit not as amazing as you'd think, because, it's like being a doctor. You think, oh, it's great to help people get better. But when you see sick animals, it's just really sad. But,
Hmm.
anyways, I'm like, all right, it's time to go back to maybe a 9 to 5, and work somewhere that hopefully I can kind of climb the ladder or become more successful. So I applied for that job, and I got it, and I just kept growing with them.
And what did they do at that company that you, because you say climb the ladder, you filled in some different shoes and different roles and stuff. So what are some of those roles that you took on at that company?
So the first start was the mastermind group. So I believe the assistant before me ran those as well, but they also had another company that they worked with. And they're actually doing really amazing right now. They have a show on A&E. They're crushing it.
Cool.
But we had this group, and my boss was pretty much just like, all right, I need you to plan this event and do this, and this. And I'm like, I know nothing about real estate. I've never hosted an event like this before, but let's go. And you know, I think I did an amazing job, and obviously he did too. So I kind of took that over, and then it just started from there. But essentially, they had a real estate investment company, so they bought and sold homes. They also had a large rental portfolio,
Okay.
and then the marketing, the mastermind business, and then they also did some stuff with medical marijuana too, which was really cool.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
And then so what was it that you fell in love with about real estate? I think the investment side of it.
I really just like the people part of it.
Okay.
You get, and I don't know if it's my interest in real estate necessarily because of properties, but every property is different, and it's
Right.
kind of cool to get to go into somebody's life and see, for one, everyone's messy. So you're like, oh, okay, so I'm not the only
Yeah.
one, or like,
Right.
um, but to see people's style, you really get a sense of like who somebody is once you go into their home, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I love that. Like, I love going into people's homes, especially, now with what I'm doing. I don't know, it's very exciting. I'm like, I just want to see inside everybody's house.
So did you ever think about being an agent and
um,
like helping people
I
buy and sell?
did. So
And
I
you have
run,
your license now, right? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my boss a long time ago, when I was an assistant, he always kind of like talked bad about realtors. So I had like this negative connotation of realtors, and
Yeah.
I didn't really know much about it, other than what that guy thought about him.
Yeah.
But then when I was at my previous job, my boss always told me that it wasn't necessary. He's like, I was like, should I get my real estate license? Like, will that help the company? And he was like, oh no, don't worry about it. Which, whatever, I don't know if that was true or not, but when I stepped out on my own, I felt like I was leaving a lot on the table. Especially like if I wanted to go help somebody and they wanted to list their home, I would have to refer that. I couldn't do it myself, but now I could do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like you mentioned the people, right? Like, and I feel like a lot of agents that do well and stuff, like that's kind of what they are good at, right? Is the connections, the relationships, and that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because you have to know contractors, you have to know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Right.
the more people you know and good people, the better.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be something you make money off of. It could just be, you know, I feel like it's like pay it forward. It comes back no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So what led you to start to leave the company and then start your own company?
well, it's a long story, so we'll keep it short, but essentially my boss and I just kind of, I think, drifted in separate directions. I had more of like a, I don't know, compassionate side to me. And I really, some of the deals we did, I just felt really bad about. And I thought that we could have helped people more. And, you know, it ultimately it led to our demise. And unfortunately, you know, we did part ways, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I wish him the best. So,
Yeah.
but I just, you know, I grew up in Memphis, so I don't know if it's like the Martin Luther King in me or what, but I just, you know, I feel like I want to help people and it's the right thing to do. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So did you ever want to start your own business? Was that ever a thought, like growing up or anything like that?
No. Which is funny because I mean, like my parents own their own companies, but I don't know. I kind of had a bunch of different dreams, like, you know, be a veterinarian or, you know, be an actress.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. I had never seen this for me in my future. So that's maybe kind of strange, but here we are.
So do you think your parents like had like influence on that to like was
Maybe
there any like
subconsciously.
yeah, but like any like was there ever a thought, so you left this other company, was there ever a thought of let me go find another job in this space, or was it just I'm gonna start my own company, I can do this?
So I actually owe this all to one of my really good friends and current business partner because at the time I hired my friend Zach to be a driver for us. And we ended up needing more drivers. So, and I couldn't manage multiple drivers at the time. So I promoted him to a drive manager and he managed all those drivers underneath him. And then he ended up morphing into my assistant, which was amazing because he is a dream. But, you know, we're talking to each other and he's like, you know, you like could run your own company if you wanted to. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, I mean, you basically do now. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never really thought about that. And then, you know, when my boss and I parted ways, there was no other thought. I'm like, I am going to start my own company. Zach's going to come do it with me, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah.
And here we are. So
Yeah.
it was scary though. I'm not gonna lie. That was terrifying. There were a couple months where I'm like,
Is this the right decision?
oh,
Like, what am I
yeah.
doing?
Yeah. Because a
What?
lot of people tell you, you know, it's like you shouldn't quit your job until, you know, you actually have something established or what. But I'm like, oh, whatever. I'll just spend all my savings and
Yeah.
just
Go for it.
grind it out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I feel like there's something to that though, just to be like fully committed into that new position instead of like, I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? Like there is something smart, something to be said about kind of like tiptoeing into that new business or just waiting till it gets to a certain level to support your income or whatever. But financially, like if you can swing it and support yourself for how many ever months it takes to really get going, I think there's something like to just dive in and go for it, right?
it takes a lot of courage
Burn the
though,
boats sort of thing. Yeah.
because almost everybody told me that maybe not directly, but the advice was that you know, I should probably go get a job. And I'm like, I refuse. Like, because for one, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I don't know if I can work for somebody again. Just because I feel like I'd want to help them, here's what we should do, let me help you run this company better. Like, so, I don't know if I could go get a normal job. I don't
Yeah.
think it would work.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of how I got to that point when I got into real estate. It was like, the job was out before it, I tried to move up and stuff, and there were just some obstacles there that I wasn't going to overcome for whatever reason. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. And then to, potentially be laid off, to, not get the job or whatever. I'm just like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you started your company, what did you guys do? What was your focus?
We worked on chasing people who were facing foreclosure. So I had still sort of the mindset from the previous company, because we did do that there. So I'm like, all right, let me just copy and paste that and see if I can do it in a better way. Like, how can I actually get in front of these people and see how I can help them, whether it's buying their house or helping them, get in touch with someone for a loan modification, whatever that was. I had always kind of been behind the scenes. And so it was really exciting. Like, I'm like, Zach, I put a list of properties together. We're going down to Bradenton for the day. We're going to knock on these people's doors. And that was like my first real experience of like door knocking.
So you never did that at your other company? Was it ever customer facing? Like, did you ever talk to the customer?
Not really. One time, right before I left, my boss was like, all right, here's this deal. I think we can get this one. I was like, okay. And like, one of the girls at the company put all the documents together for me. And I went over there with Zach. We knocked on the door and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, we really need to sell. And I was like, well, this is easy. I was like, okay, we'll sign here. And, like, here's the offer. And, so I didn't have to do all the thinking and all the legwork. It was kind of just like, they wanted to sell. The company gave me the documents and I went to the property. So, and, essentially I do that now for a lot of people on my team, but it's totally different when you have to, make the connection and then figure out what they need. And so it's definitely more to it than I thought. But it's really cool. And I think we're getting really creative and good at it.
Yeah. So for people who are unaware, like, whether you're thinking about getting into investing or not, or just kind of curious about that process, like, what is that process like? How are you finding these people? Like, what's the journey like from, the first phone call or the first door knock till, you're either purchasing their home or you're helping them save their home?
So ironically, we have a lot of people call us because of referrals.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Like, hey, you helped my friend with this and I want to see if you can, help me too, or help my other friend. But essentially what we do is whenever we make contact, we have to sit down and I want their whole story. Like, I want to know, why are you in this situation? What is your, financial, like, where do you stand? And, it's really personal. And again, like, I usually get invited into their house, which most of the time I love. Some of them are a little bit rough. We'll sit on the porch, but I have to know what their situation is to figure out how I can help them, because not everybody's going to qualify for a loan modification. Not everybody, is in a situation where they could just sell. If it's a short sale, that's a heck of a process. Which, again, I have to tell the clients, it's like, hey, I need, or like when you go to an attorney, it's like they tell you, I need you to tell me the truth. Like, you have to be honest with me or else I can't help you to the best of my ability. So I'm like, tell me everything. I need to know how much money you make. I need to know how much debt you have. I need to know, how many mortgages do you have? Like, because that comes up a lot. Then people don't tell you about second and third mortgages until you look it up and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We have to change our game plan.
Does it take a while to, like, kind of build that rapport with them?
Everyone's
get that
different.
Info? Yeah.
Some people will tell you everything right off the bat and they'll just like go get their file and show you all their things. And then other people, it takes weeks of nurturing. I have some people that I'm working with. I've been working with them for over a year. And it, like one of my short sale listings right now, I have been helping her for over a year. She tried to get a loan modification 3 times, and they finally denied her and said, well, here's what you can just, list it and sell it or whatever. And, that's when she finally was like, can you list my property for me? I was like, of course. But again, I mean, I could have, helped that lady for over a year and never made a
Nothing.
penny.
Right.
But, to me, it's like having that, and she's referring me to other people too. So that's the thing. It's like, I may not make money off of her, which, now that we're going to do a short sale, I will get paid paid for being a realtor and doing the sale. But, it's, again, it's, I don't know, it's part of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Good and the bad.
But you have to, I think that just comes with the territory of real estate, like the business of real estate, right? There, you have to build rapport. It's not an easy decision for people to make, whether they're selling their home or not selling the home, whether they keep their home or can't keep it, so it takes time, and people change their minds all the time. Like life happens, circumstances change. And, but as long as you're there and, like a trustworthy source for them, like that's gonna, speak volumes when the time comes.
Oh yeah. I know there's a lot of investors that may not be too happy with me right now because, they do want to just come and buy these houses. And a lot of times I, either shoo them away or whatever, but I know there's money to be made in a lot of situations, but it's more important about, the people in our community. This could be, who knows, like what, if you're going to run into these people later on in life. I mean, you don't know. And so it's really important to me, especially with the situations where the people live in their homes. Like it's not, an estate property or something where like it is their home. It's not just a house. And I think people lose sight of that and they just see the dollar signs, and it's like, life is too short to just think about the money. You have to think about people.
It's interesting because I think realtors and investors kind of have like a bad rap, right, for some of those few people that treat their business that way, and it's a shame. It's a shame that people do that. But it's a shame for the industry as a whole, right? To just kind of have like this bad outlook from the consumer for just those few individuals.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's definitely, there's a lot of investors and realtors that kind of sour it for the rest of us. And I get it. I had one property that I was listing, and the realtor that was representing the buyer, she just was like so bossy and mean, and then I couldn't figure out why, and then finally she was just like, I really need to make this commission. And I was like, man, like
you can't do that.
I'll help you find another way to make money. Like it's not like, come on. So I mean, and I get it, like she's in a really bad spot, but people show their true colors when they need money. And it's unfortunate.
I wonder if there's a different way to, because I if you look at, it's like the 80-20 rule, it's probably even greater difference than that. But like the amount of agents, and I'm sure the amount of investors that are really successful is very, very slim. And then the most majority of agents and investors don't make a lot of money. I wonder like what the answer to that is. Like, is there something to kind of offset that, to help out, the agents that aren't that successful, or is it just we need to have tighter restrictions to like get into the business?
That, I mean, I would
and to
agree
stay
with both.
into the business.
I mean, what's crazy is, and I'm sure you can agree to this, when you go get your real estate license, they don't really teach you much. Like,
No.
you just learn about the laws. I mean, and it's kind of similar for most industries, I'm sure. But, people are, oh, I'm going to go, get my real estate license and I'll know how to, it's like, you don't know anything. You come out and, you're helpless. And luckily I had a good amount of knowledge already, but I had to learn so much. And, I kind of was, what do they call it? It's like a ask hole. I asked so many questions to so many people, and, whether they, were annoyed by me or what, I'm like, I need to like it.
You
If
have
you
to,
help me,
yeah.
it'll help you. Like, help me help you. We'll all make money. So, I will say that I think that there should be some sort of better education off the rip. That I think that would help people be more successful, because I think that's a lot of times where people fail is because they mess up or they don't know. And again, it's hard to do a good job at something if you don't fully understand what you're doing.
Right.
But then, as far as, restrictions, I do think that would be helpful too, because there's a lot of, talk about wholesalers, kind of like messing things up, which is not totally untrue. But again, there's a skill to that, and there's a lot to know, and it really does help if you work with a realtor. Whether, I would recommend all investors or wholesalers work with a realtor. You don't have to pay them a lot, just pay them a little bit. It's worth it because at least, you're compliant, like they're making money, they're going to send you business. Like, it just helps the world go round. So I think, some of these wholesalers should maybe, I don't know, think about that.
Yeah. Cooperate. Work together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Collaborate.
So you mentioned wholesaling. Like, what is that for people that don't understand it? And then like what's the purpose of it, right? Like, how does it work?
Well, that's a very broad term, because there's a lot of different ways to wholesale. But essentially, if you look at, any product, you're buying it from the original source at a cheaper price, and then you're going to sell it to somebody else for a higher price. That's a wholesale deal. So whether it's a property, whether it's a food product, whatever it is.
Yeah. So,
and then in real estate, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Whether you're assigning a contract or doing a double close, it's really just depends on the situation, and who you're dealing with. Like, if you aren't transparent with people, a lot of times you're going to do a double close. If you're doing an assignment of contract, everyone knows, because everybody's going to be on the closing statement. So, but essentially, that is bare bones, that you're buying something direct from the person selling it, and then you're going to sell it to somebody else and collect money. That's a wholesale.
You're typically selling it to like another investor, or is there some times where...
I don't know many people that would wholesale something that would be like retail ready, to the market. It's something usually that needs work. But I'm sure there are people, especially like with these subject to deals. I don't know if you've heard about those, but I don't do that. Because also when I get into a situation like that, if I come across a seller who has a financeable product, I'm going to say, let's list it. Because you're going to make the most amount of money that way. It's when it's not financeable, they don't have the money to do the repairs, it just becomes a hassle, and they're going to need a cash buyer most likely. And a cash buyer is probably not a retail buyer. They're going to be somebody that's an investor looking to flip the property. So,
Yeah. So I think, like, as an investor, like, would you say this, like, in order to be really successful, you have to be creative, you have to have multiple options?
Well, I was going to mention this earlier with, being successful. You have to be able to diversify, pivot. You have to be you got to be good at multiple things. You have to think on your feet. I can't tell you how many times when we're working on a deal, and we change the exit strategy multiple times. And my team's just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, yesterday this made sense. Today it doesn't make sense. And then the next day we're back to the other plan. They're like, oh my gosh. But, as the market changes right now, you have to be on your toes at all times. And I know we're going to probably get into our flip that we're doing right now, but, we have changed the exit strategy on that one so many times, including just the rehab alone. Like, we went from, converting it into a 4-2 to, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to leave it as a 3-1. and it's just been like, up and down. But, the market has gone from, in 2023, 2022, people were buying things in 2 seconds. It didn't matter what you listed it at. Now it's like a race to the bottom. So, again, it's like, well, what are our numbers? What do we want to do?
Yeah.
Like, we have to make money. So we're not going to lose money.
Right. What gives us the best strategy for that? So let's talk about that. So how did you, like start from the beginning? Like how long, I think, cause this is like what we were talking about before. Like, I want people to understand that, the fix and flip, it's in theory, it's simple, right? You buy a property,
In theory.
you fix it up, you turn around and sell it for a profit. It's not always, smooth, and you buy a property and then 6 months later it's sold. So for this particular one, like how long have you been in contact with the seller, and then where are you at today, and like some of the in-between details?
So this one started, I want to say around May of 2023 is when I started talking to the seller.
And this is somebody that was going into foreclosure or was in foreclosure?
So
Okay.
they were, I believe at the time it was a pre-foreclosure, but pretty soon after that, there was an auction date set.
Okay.
And this was one of those properties where, I talked to the seller for a long time. We went under contract. He ended up getting cold feet. I let him out. Like I didn't even, he's like, I changed my mind. I got a loan modification. I want to keep the house. And I was like, totally, wish you the best of luck. And that's a situation where a lot of investors would have sued them. But I'm not that way. So, cut to, he didn't perform on his loan modification, and he's back in, facing an auction. And he calls me up and he's like, hey, I really liked you. You were so good to me. And, I want to sell the house to you. Is the offer still the same? I'm like, well, I'm going to need to come see the house again, because it's been a while, and it was in a rough situation then. I don't know what it looks like now. So we did alter the offer a little bit. But he ended up moving forward with me. But as I'm there one day, there's, multiple that, it's like the vultures come by. So we got like 10 people coming by while I'm talking to him. We've got a signed contract. So he's, officially my person, my seller. And, I'm like shooing people away. I'm like, just go away. Like, stop it.
Yeah. Other investors. Are
Yeah. And they're like, we'll pay you, 20,000 more than she paid you. I'm like, that is impossible. You're a liar. The numbers don't work. Anyways, so we ended up purchasing the house from him. Unfortunately, the agreement we made with him for 60 days post occupancy, he couldn't get it together. And we tried to help him find a new place, but he just kind of went off the rails a little bit, unfortunately. And so we did have to file for an eviction, which it was horrible and we hated it. And I cried, but he ended up, at the end of the day, he still came up to me and apologized, for not doing what he said he was going to do. He's like, you held up your end and I didn't. No hard feelings. I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, I can live. So now it's time to flip the property. So we're, getting bids from contractors, and, we finally decide on a plan that we're going to do. We start work, and immediately after that, the neighbor complains, and we have a stop work order now, over some fence stuff. And so now we're like, we bought the property in February 2024. It is, a long time since February right now. Yeah. And we're just now starting on the rehab. So, it's been very painful. Hopefully we're going to list, October 1st, and hopefully the market's going to be in a decent place and we're going to get what we asked for it. So,
yeah.
But
so you started talking to this guy in 2022 or
2023.
2023. Yeah. I forgot about the end of 2024. So 2023, I know, right? And then a year later he sells it to you. You finally, and then you got to evict him. And then you get a stop order just because of some neighbor issues and stuff. And so 7 months go by and you're not able to work on the property.
Yep. It should have been
done
essentially
and
like a
sold.
4-week rehab.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So, excuse me.
And yeah. And so now you're about to, yeah. So that's, over 2 years or over, I keep my days mixed up, but yeah. So 2023, 2024, the end of 2024. So a long time to kind of go through that process before you're able to actually sell the property.
I started talking to that guy in, I think, May of 2023, and we purchased it February 2024, and we should be listing October of 2024. So if we sell, hopefully we
This
sell
year.
before.
Yeah.
That would be great. Otherwise, it's like, 2023 to 2025, we've had
Yeah.
this split property. And,
Yeah.
that's, again, people say it's easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. And not everyone is like that, right? But there are some easy ones where it's simple, but even just finding the property too, like there's work involved in that. How many do you go through that you analyze a deal before you actually like commit to like, okay, this one's going to work?
A lot.
Yeah.
Which, again, you also have to get the deal too, because,
Right.
it was very competitive. Even just a year ago was very competitive. People were still
Yeah.
like, especially with a wholesale property, you got cash buyers fighting over, who's going to get it. And like, when I was doing it as a newbie, out on my own, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go any higher than that. Like, that's crazy. Next. So, maybe they saw, there were a lot of deals that I wholesaled because I wasn't ready to rehab, where, I made good money as a wholesaler. And then obviously I watched the properties, and the investors made really good money too. So I felt good about that. We took a house that was, a lot of them too were, vacant, abandoned, which is, it hurts the property values. Like it's,
Right.
It's good for everybody to get those properties turned.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was cool to watch it go from that to, like a really pretty end product, and then I'm like, well, I want to do that part, but I think, I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see after this one.
One and done.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been painful.
Yeah. I can imagine. I think clearly like through this conversation, I hope people get out of this, but like what's different for like what you do is that you truly care about the people, right? And that's why I asked you, like, have you ever thought about being an agent, right? Because I think like the agents that truly care about the people, really in any business, like if you have that quality about you, or as a business, I think you're gonna find success in some capacity. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because again, there's been a lot of people that we've worked with or helped and made no money off of them, but they refer us to somebody else who makes us money.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's just that pay it forward, whether it's the universe or what.
Yeah.
I think if you do good, it will come back to you.
Yeah. And so that's what you're kind of trying to focus on now too, a little bit of, is just like finding these people, seeing if you can help them in some capacity stay in the property, or help them like transition smoothly, right?
Mm-hmm. And I learn a lot too, because when I first started, the only thought in my mind was, okay, these people are in a bad situation, they need to sell, let me help them sell. But really, in reality, a lot of these people have other options, and I wasn't even really aware of these options until I started doing this and researching, like, okay, what is the entire process of a foreclosure, and what are these people going through? Why are they here? So when I realized that, people could get loan modifications, or people could, sell or list, or, any other thing, just that then being selling to a cash buyer.
Right.
So, I like the fact that I've learned all this and I've pivoted my business, because, it's made me want to do other things outside of that. Including, I think our biggest thing would almost be like consulting. I didn't charge for consulting when I first started, because I don't, and when you look up the definition too, it's like you have to be an expert in something to consult somebody. So I'm like, well, I'm not an expert. Like I can't be out here charging people, when I don't know what I'm talking about yet. But I learned with my clients, and that was really cool. Like, hey, let's look this up together. Like, I don't know if you're going to qualify for a loan modification. Let me refer you to so and so. Like, so, and a lot of people don't get, approved. And but
Yeah, I love that. It's a work in progress. Like, and it's cool too, like how your business has evolved since from kind of where you got started.
so we're going to the Denim and Diamonds gala coming up, and the lady that runs that, Devin, it's the Raising Relief. So I'm really wanting to talk to her, and maybe anyone that's listening, anyone that wants to get involved, kind of, maybe starting our own foundation to maybe raise funds to help. There's a lot of people who can't really, especially like in a short sale situation, they don't have the means to find a new place to live, and also affordability is a really big issue too. So I take that very seriously when I work with people, who are selling. It's like, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a plan? What, because a lot, if you're in foreclosure, unless you sell, you do get foreclosed on, that's a whole nother story. But, people who are in foreclosure, it messes up their credit. They're not gonna be able to buy a house for a long time. So it's like, that's another thing too. I'm like, you need to be working on your credit, like be prepared. Or even people who get a loan mod, I'm like, you need to work on your credit.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared to refinance when you're able to get away from, because usually the loan modifications aren't great, but it's an option to stay in your home, especially if it's, you've had it for a long time and it's really important to you. I'm like, you need to get away from this. But, I've had a lot of people who, they move in with other family, or, because they cannot afford to go get another place. Especially if they do a short sale and they don't get cash for keys, they make no money.
Yeah.
So although they avoided foreclosure, essentially they have nothing.
They're starting on ground zero. How many of these, like, people that you've, or like individuals, homeowners and stuff, like just the education side of like managing finances and stuff like that, they just don't, like, do they need help and assistance in that way? Or have they just had like some bad circumstances, life events that have happened and they've gotten to this situation?
I'd say it's both.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and it's usually younger people, who just don't know. They got into a situation and, they weren't educated on, hey, this mortgage is, really expensive, and, you're going to have repairs, and they don't understand the upkeep of a property.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I do think some people just shouldn't own homes, and, that's okay. But then other times it is like there's someone fell ill in the family, or, someone lost their job, and that's tough. It's tough to overcome. And, whether they need counseling or whether they just need help or some sort of assistance. But, in a situation where someone has equity, it really depends, but I would suggest that they sell and cash out on their equity, and just start over with a new, better investment, and try it better the next time.
Just learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
But, I don't know. I mean, credit repair can't save everybody.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's sad that like I have a financial coach, and he was on the podcast recently, but there's no education on like financial stability and like managing your finances, how to save for retirement or invest your money. Like, there is zero education on that unless like you're seeking that out. And a lot of people find themselves in those situations just because they're just uneducated on that. It's pretty sad.
And I don't think, especially like, mortgage underwriters, I don't think they ever plan to like take advantage of people, but I don't think they don't take the time to explain everything the way they should. Especially with first-time home buyers. I feel like there should be way more education given to the home buyers. Like, listen, You're going to have taxes. Like, this is a big, big decision. Are you sure you're ready for this? Like, how much do you have in reserves? Do you have 6 months,
Yeah.
backed up? Like, those are things I think that should be asked.
You can. So next. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I agree. So I like to wrap up with this question. You didn't grow up in this area like you mentioned. How long have you been in Palm Harbor?
So I was born in Clearwater,
Oh, okay, okay.
but I moved away as a very young child. I did all of grade school in Tennessee. And then I
cool.
went to college in Murfreesboro outside of Nashville.
Okay.
And then I started getting on that Allegiant flight down to Clearwater like way too often to come see my mom. I'm like, that's it. I'm moving down here.
Yeah.
So I came back in 2015 and
Okay.
I'm in Clearwater and I'm probably never leaving. So
Okay. So what do you love about this area? Like what kept you coming back here?
well, obviously the beach.
Yeah.
Love the beach. But I don't, I feel like it's just a really cool melting pot. Like there's so many different people here. It's never boring.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many things to do. You're so close to so many different things. You got Tampa, you got Sarasota,
Yeah.
Orlando. I mean, it's just so amazing. So,
Yeah.
I get why everyone's moving here.
Yeah. There's so many. Yeah, it's a great spot. Like
The
there's
real estate's good.
the real estate's good. The market, it used to be really cheap to live here. Maybe not so much anymore, but
Yeah.
but it's still affordable compared to the rest of the country. So
Yeah.
for certain pockets, I guess. But yeah, awesome. Well, Jessica, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah.